1 second. Let me try that again. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. That's pretty much another working week over and done with. And this time next week, my bags will be packed and I'll be just about to jet off for Sicily for a week. You'll have a gap of a week. Speaking of jetting off, I've just seen that Gary Muirhead has joined us. Gary is heading off to Tenerife at some point later today. Have a fantastic trip, Gary. Well deserved. Is anybody else getting away this summer? If you are, let us know when and where you're going. Unfortunately, and sadly, postcards don't really work in this video and digital age, but if you'd like to share a photograph of yourself on your hollybobs, I'll do my best to share it. Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show very much on the road. It is Friday, the 21st of July. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, it's sheer delight as Epiroc unveils its latest demolition tools. We're throwing the spotlight onto one of the lesser-known parts of the Hydrima product range. What does it take to build a 200-ton excavator? You're about to find out. And we have a blast from the past in the form of an international harvester track loader. If you've seen the thumbnail for today's show, you may have already spotted it. Plus, in our gripe of the day, we, or should I say I, expose a staggering lack of joined-up thinking and foresight blighting the UK demolition and construction industry. And we will get to all of that and probably a whole lot more besides in just a second. But first, let's pause a moment, peer back through the mist of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1798, Napoleon and his forces wiped out most of the Egyptian army to win the Battle of the Pyramids. In 1853, the New York State Legislature, should I say, set aside 750 acres of land on Manhattan Island. That land would later become Central Park. In 1969, on this very day, Neil Armstrong became the first person to step foot on the moon. That's assuming you don't believe the whole thing was staged by Stanley Kubrick, like my son-in-law, who is an idiot. In 1987, Guns N' Roses released the album Appetite for Destruction. It would go on to become the best-selling debut album of all time. And it's in my collection. Love a bit of Guns N' Roses. And on this day in 2022, the UK recorded its highest ever temperature as the mercury hit 40.3 degrees at Coningsby, wherever the hell Coningsby is. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yeah, what is your most treasured possession? Now, don't go and get all squishy on me and say your wife or your children or your pets. I mean, actual possessions. Is there something that you worked exceptionally hard to afford? Something somebody special gave you, or something you were left by someone that is no longer here? I've got several. One is a pair of Air Force cufflinks given to me by my grandfather, sadly no longer with us. And the other is my dad's old wallet. Dad's no longer with me either. He bizarrely handwrote his note onto the leather of the wallet, presumably so that somebody might return it if he ever lost it. He clearly didn't, because he gave it to me. I can't use the cufflinks or the wallet just in case I lose them, but they are among my most treasured possessions. What about you? And I'm just going to say a very quick thank you to Gary Muirhead, who kind of came up with that as the question of the day. So, your most treasured possession. Let us know in the chat. Epiroc is one of the big names in the field of demolition attachments. You don't need me to tell you that. It's a premium brand producing some of the very best demolition tools on the market. So when they drop a new range of shears, well worth taking a look. Yes, Dan Cullen just said they really do look awesome shears. I'd love to go see them in action. Epiroc, if you're listening, you know where to find me. Now, some of this. If I said to you the name Hydrima, what would you think of? A compact ADT? Surely the thing that the company is best known for. Maybe you'd think of a backhoe loader. Another good answer. But would you necessarily think of this? Yeah, very smart looking machine, right? But I don't recall ever seeing one in the wild. How about you? And maybe the comment from Steve Williamson actually explains that. Cracking ducks, those, but my God, they're expensive. Are they expensive? I'm assuming they are. Do look a premium product. Love to know. Has anyone else actually seen one of those machines out in the field doing its thing? I haven't. Let me know. If you were here yesterday, you may recall that we showed you how a 4-ton tyre is changed on a big mining truck. But have you ever wondered about how a big excavator is assembled on site? A big 200-ton excavator, for example. A 200-ton Hitachi excavator, to be more precise. Well, wonder no longer. Really quite an undertaking, right? And as someone that can't actually assemble an IKEA bookshelf, I find it incredible they can bring together all those moving parts. It turns out I may not be alone in my allergy to IKEA wardrobes. Um, Gary Muirhead says, "I hope there's no bolts left over at the end." See, therein lies the difference. If you assemble an IKEA bookshelf like the one behind me, which I got my son to do, if you assemble that and you end up with a screw or a bracket or something like that, it's like, oh well, never mind. You imagine you get to the end of building an EX 1900 Hitachi and think, I'm fairly sure this is important. I'm just not entirely sure where it goes. What do? Do you put it in your pocket? Do you take it home? Do you keep it as a spare part, as somebody, as Steve Williamson suggested? Would worry me enormously. And Steve has just said, really want to go try and get on something that size. Given your growing reputation, Steve, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before somebody invites you along to have a go on one of the big boys. But if you do, make sure you take your camera. And incidentally, I'm just going to mention this in passing. Obviously, we do already have a very elite club of super fans here, who I would count Gary Muirhead and Ken Hatcher among. Steve Williamson. Steve Williamson sent me a video on our WhatsApp group this morning of him starting work with our intro theme playing in the background. I think you now qualify as a super fan, Steve. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Now, let's have some of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Earlier this week, we were talking about equipment manufacturers that we loved and have since lost. One of those that I mentioned was International Harvester. Now, I have only a limited memory of International Harvester, and that comes mainly because I used to work with the guy who worked for them. But when I found this yesterday, this kind of jogged my memory. Yeah, I don't know why, but old-time machines just need blues music, don't they? And as Steve Williamson has just said, definitely need a redneck tune for that. I don't know why. I don't know why is old machines just bring to mind the blues. Just so you know, that machine you were just watching was an International Harvester 175 payloader. Very nice it was too. Now, enough of looking back fondly. It is now time to look at the present and the immediate future with a mix of anger, frustration, and resignation. For reasons that are about to become evident, I've pre-recorded today's gripe. Yesterday afternoon, I sat down and had a good chat with myself. This was the result. Explain to me again, why are we relaxing visa laws? We need more construction workers. But didn't we send a lot of migrant workers home after Brexit? We did, but we want them back. I thought we didn't like migrants. Only those that arrive in little boats. So if they arrive in big boats, they'll be okay? More than okay. We'll even fast track them through their competence training to get them out to work. Hang on, I thought we were actually tightening up on competence cards. We are, but only for those that are already here and that are already doing the job. So we're making it harder for those that are here and easier for those that aren't? Well, anyway, I thought young people were the potential saviours of the construction industry. Young people are lazy, feckless, and have zero work ethic. All of them? No, of course not. Those that go to university for 3 years studying media and how to become a YouTuber, they're absolutely fine. Wouldn't we be better off placing an emphasis on vocational training so we could get young people into the construction workforce more quickly? There's no need. Really? How do you figure? We could rely on migrant workers. Aren't there visa restrictions in place? There are, but we're going to relax visa regulations. Explain to me again, why are we relaxing visa laws? We need more. And so it goes on, just round and round in a never-ending loop. You get the idea. You could actually play that on an endless loop. Never make any more sense. If somebody can explain exactly the thinking behind that, I would love to hear from you. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? The daily gripe therapy session will return at some point in the future. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. Also wraps up this working week for me. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat, see what you're all saying today, and to discuss your prized possessions and treasured possessions and what have you. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a good day. Have a good weekend too. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you immediately after a final word from our key show sponsor. Morning, gang. How are we all doing this fine day? Right. Bit of a frog. Good morning. Let's have a look back. First off the mark this morning was Dan Cohen. Dan, and I realise you've mentioned it in the chat. I'm just going to turn that music down a bit more. It sounds awful loud in my ear holes. Better. Explain why you were so grateful to Nigel Williams last night. I think I've got the picture, but I'm not entirely sure. Let us know. It's Friday. Thank you very much indeed for the reminder, Dan. But trust me, when Friday rolls around, I need no reminder whatsoever. There is Gary Muirhead, who is packing his budgie smugglers as we speak, ready to jet off. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Happy Friday, everyone. Very happy Friday to you, Gary. Tenerife, 2 weeks. Well deserved. Hope you have a fantastic time. Our friend Graham Footy Williams is here as well. Good morning, bro. Bro, it's a while since I've been called bro. In fact, I don't think I've ever been called bro before. I'll take it. I don't care. I've been called worse. Our friend Chris Ford is in the house. Good morning. My phone says expect rain. No change there then. Whereabouts in the world are you, Chris? It's lovely here in leafy Surrey. The rain can't afford to fall in Surrey, you see. Morning all, says Steve Williamson. Friday, he says. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. How are you doing? Well, all I can say is there are friends, and then there is Nigel Williams, an exceptional person, amazing guy to have as a friend. I'm forever grateful for what he did last night. What did he do? I think he put you up, but I don't actually know the full story. Let us know. Right, so my question of the day today, which, as I say, I borrow partly from Gary Muirhead. What is your most treasured possession? I've mentioned a couple of my grandfather's Air Force cufflinks, which I never wear because I don't want to lose one. My late dad's wallet, which has got his name scribbled in it. And I've got a really, really weird one. I was 17, so this would have been 1982. Myself and my best friend, Bruce, sadly no longer with us, took a holiday to Spain. while we were there, we bought ourselves fishing gear, but not a fishing rod. It's basically a line on and a hook and a float, and it's all wrapped around a piece of cork. And we spent ages trying to catch fish, unsuccessfully by and large. But we both bought one and brought mine. We both brought them back. And every once in a while, we'd be fishing because we used to fish together anyway. And every once in a while, just for a laugh, we'd try it out here. More successful here than we were over there. But my mate Bruce was killed in a motorcycle accident about 11 years ago now. And all of a sudden, this I think I paid like €1 for it, and it would have been in pesetas at the time. This crappy old piece of cork with a float on it suddenly took on a new value. So what is your most treasured possession? Jim Turner's in the house. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being there. Hope you enjoyed the music this morning. I chose a couple of the tunes, specifically those behind the let me think, the Hydrima, and more specifically the Hitachi, just to suit your ear holes. Hope you enjoyed that. Now, there's a good one. Pocket watch with a picture of my granddad. You've mentioned your granddad before, Steve. I obviously, I think he was the inspiration for you getting into this industry. Must have been very close. And I know, I mean, I lost my my paternal grandfather when I was quite young. I was probably only about 12, I guess. So obviously, you know, you miss your granddad and everything else. But the one that hit me the hardest was my maternal grandfather. My son is actually named after him, Fred. He was a Fred, and he was a bit like my dad. He was my idol. You know, he was when I first started to get bylines, and just it's a journalistic term, but when your name first starts to appear in print, that's a byline. I used to put a ring round it and take it round to him. Because he lived very close by, and he used to take it to some social club where he would use it to boast about his son being a famous journalist, because I had a byline in a magazine. There you are. My health, but there again, I abuse it, says Crystal. It's a valuable commodity, though, and I have to say, I've had, obviously I had the whack on the head on a demolition site. But far worse than that, I had a burst appendix, and I make light of it now, but it was actually touch and go whether I made it through on that. And then I caught sepsis twice. So yeah, I've been pretty close to the edge a couple of times, and you do become very, very aware of your health and your well-being after that. Anybody else has had a near-death experience makes it sound a lot more dramatic than it really was, because I knew nothing about it. But if you've come close, you do tend to take a lot more notice of exactly how you're feeling. Gary Muirhead, thanks, Mark. Last day of work, fly out tomorrow, 2:30 from Edinburgh. I shall be waving to the sky at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. Have a fantastic time, Gary. Build a sandcastle in my honour and have a beer on me, would you? You could have mine, because I don't. Question of the day. Dan Cullen says, my health, and secondly, phone. Yeah, they are, aren't they? Isn't it weird, right? That you are so fond is the wrong word. You're so reliant upon a phone these days that you actually find yourself buying it presents. Anybody else do that? Like you buy a cleaning kit. Would you have bought a cleaning kit for your home phone? You know, the old landline type phone? Of course you wouldn't. Would you buy a protective case? Of course you wouldn't. You know, would you adorn it with little dangly things? I've never done that. But no, you wouldn't do that. And yet you get yourself one of these and you find yourself popping down the shops and buying it a gift. It is a treasured possession. I've got to be honest. If I lost that, I'd be knackered. My entire life lives on that. Some years ago, it wasn't that phone. It was a good couple of generations ago. But I was in Porto, in Portugal, reporting on a tower block blast. And took my wife with me, and we saw the blast, and then we had a couple of days in Porto because it's very nice there. And we went out on a boat cruising up and down the river, the name of which has gone completely out of my head. But at one point, I put my hand through a railing on the side of the boat to take a photograph, and as I pulled my hand back, it knocked the phone out of my hand, and I managed to catch it with the other hand. But I sat there literally having palpitations for about 5 minutes because I thought I was about to lose my iPhone, because, as I say, my life lives on there. Ken Hatch is in the house. Morning, Ken. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. one of our possibly 3 super fans now, I would say. It's a very exclusive club, but we now have 3 members, I think. I feel a t-shirt coming on for something like that. Graham Williams, now this is a belter of a treasure possession. My Harley Davidson, my mum bought it for me a month before she passed away. I mean, a Harley Davidson should be a treasured possession anyway. But the very fact that she bought it for you just before she passed away makes it even more special. My sister Kelly, she is on her second marriage. Much better second time around, I have to say. But her first husband never entirely figured out what he did for a living, but he seemed to make a living in a kind of shady way. And he actually got a Harley Davidson, and I mean a proper big old Harley Davidson. And I said, blimey, that must have set you back a few quid. And he said, oh, no, it was a gift. I did a favour for somebody. What kind of favour do you have to do somebody to get a Harley Davidson? Scared the bejesus out of me, I have to say. Steve Williamson, using them shears, not easy as they make it look. It's a fair lump of metal on the end of the machine, and you know it. It takes good skill to operate one correctly. And imagine that even more so if you're actually working at height. You're unlikely to take a shear of that kind up to any real height, 40, 50, 60, 70 metres. But if you're working at a distance and you've got that, and you're trying to be accurate with your cuts and everything else, no mean feat. There's some very, very good operators in the demolition business. There's Graham again. She passed away after I got it. I think it's 1985. Had it now. Can't let it go, and I'm 61 now. Why would you? Why would you? My car, says Ken Hatcher. Yeah, it's a good one. You'd be lost without it, certainly. Steve Williamson, cracking workshop. See, I was oddly torn with that actually. When you think about some of the factories that we've brought to you in the past, like the JCB and the Caterpillar and the Komatsu and stuff, where vanishes off into the distance, and there's robots and there's lasers and all that kind of thing. Incredible. And yet Hydrima kind of had the Morgan feel about it, that machine was actually being hand built. I kind of like that, and maybe that's where some of the cost comes from. As Steve Williamson says, cracking ducks. He says cracking ducks, so like a Chinese dish, but cracking ducks, but they are very expensive. Wow, that's not your average production facility. That looks an awesome piece of kit. I totally agree. Now back to question of the day. Question of the day says, Gary Muirhead, my good friend John McKinnon, an amazing operator with over 50 years experience, when he retired, he handed me an old ice cream tub with all his old digger keys, and I can tell you there's some really old ones. I'll treasure that for the rest of my days. Isn't that strange? It's like my piece of cork with some fishing line on it. Utterly, utterly, utterly worthless. Not worth a penny. And yet it moves house with me. I mean, it's literally, if I could move something else, I could even show it to you. It's that close to me. It's literally within reach. What a ridiculous thing. And like you say, an ice cream tub of digger keys. No intrinsic value whatsoever, but sentimental value is an absolute belter, isn't it? Chris Fall talking about the black Hydrima. Bastard to keep clean, like a black car. Looks good for the first hour after you've cleaned it. No good to me. The concrete dust would turn it white. And maybe that would be a good thing. Maybe you'd get that kind of marbled effect. Sort of white at the bottom, fading into black at the top. Maybe. I don't know. I am oddly torn. I love all white machines. I've mentioned this before. I love all white machines. I love the Despain machines and the Cardin machines over in France, and some of the big Liebherr machines that are kitted out in white. But I have to say, the best looking demolition excavator in the whole of the UK is owned by CDC, and it is black from tip to toe. Yes, it is a swine to keep it clean, but man alive, when it's clean, it does look the part. Those ducts probably made to specifications for the customer. Yeah, I would imagine they are. Again, that's one of the benefits of being hand-built, I guess. Hope there's no bolts left over at the end. See, this is man chat, because when I saw that video, I thought exactly the same. Can you imagine? You're the engineer and you think, I've got this bit, Do I tell the boss, or should I just put it in my pocket? I think I know what I'd do. There was a famous story, actually, of a sound engineer at the Abbey Road Studios, nothing to do with assembling stuff, but they recorded a part of a Beatles song, and the guy was very young, a bit green and everything else, rewound the tape and then managed to record over what John Lennon had just done, and couldn't bear to tell anyone. And as it turns out, John Lennon was the only person that noticed, didn't give a toss, because he could do it again. But you imagine, I've re-recorded over the top of something that John Lennon has laid down. Imagine if you'd have just pulled that off the reel, stuck it in your pocket. It'd be worth an absolute fortune. Wow, there's some work involved in putting that puzzle together. Take a few days. Now, where are we in the calendar? Yes, if you think that SK 1400D, the Cabelco, is in Australia by now, I would imagine. I don't know whether it's made its way through customs and all the things it has to do, but there will be a job it's obviously going to go from Darwin all the way around the top of Australia to Gove, as we reported a couple of weeks ago on our midweek show, and then that process will begin there. And I think they've got Japanese engineers flying over and then driving for 23 hours to go and assemble that thing and then put it through its paces. It'll be quite an undertaking. They are always spare parts at the end. Yeah, that's the way. You put the bolt in your pocket, leave it a few months, and then when somebody says, we could do with that, I found this in the stores. That's the way you play it. That takes operator skill to get it right as well as the guys on the ground. Totally agree. Really want to get a go on something that size. Surely, as I say, it's only a matter of time. Maybe reach out to one of the exhibitors at Hillhead, for example, Steve. Given your social media profile and given your prowess at the controls, reach out. I know there was. Let me think. Who did we do it with? Hyundai. Hyundai had a bunch of influencers on their stand at Hillhead last time around. All got to drive their big machines. Surely. I'm not saying necessarily Hyundai, because they do have a tie-in with certain influencers, but there's plenty of others there. Reach out, have a word. He scratches the paint with that sledgehammer. Oh yeah, can you imagine the pain of that? You've spent 1.5, 1.6, possibly even 2 million on a new excavator, and matey arrives with a sledgehammer to bang a bolt in. You're really thankful for that. I'd love a go too, says Dan. It's about time somebody put on a big machine open day, isn't it? They'll take over the Hillhead Quarry and just put some big kit in there and get some of the boys along. We had an international binder for cutting corn. It was ground driven, says Dan Cullen. As I say, yeah, I used to work with a guy who had the most appropriate name in this industry I have ever heard. His name was Jack Shovel. Shovel, yes, and he sold loading shovels for International Harvest Day. I remember him telling me he used to tell me lots of tales actually, but I remember him telling me one which he said was part of the secret of his sales success. Bearing in mind this is pre-mobile phone days, so getting hold of customers was more problematic than it used to be, or than it is today rather. And International Harvester, being American, he would run a trip over to the States every once in a while, maybe once or twice a year, and he would take some of the big equipment buyers with him. And rather than giving them gifts on their return journey, here's a model and here's a bottle of champagne or whatever it might be, he used to send a huge bouquet of flowers to the guy's wife, on the basis that she'd been left behind to look after the kids, so she'd get a huge bouquet of flowers. And I said, yeah, that's good thinking. He said, oh, you don't know the half of it. He said, from that point on, you could phone on a Saturday afternoon, you'd get the wife, and she would be so grateful for the flowers. Yes, of course I'll disturb his Saturday afternoon. I'll get him for you, Jack. No problem at all. You see, sales techniques lost in the mist of time. Definitely a redneck tune. I don't know what it is. There are certain... For some reason, I quite like a bit of dubstep to go with drone shots, but I also, if I've got a bit of old kit, the first thing I think of is bluegrass or blues or something of that ilk. Don't know why. That's a nice machine for its day. Yeah, it really was a nice machine for its day. Myself and Ed had a rant last night about barriers. Barriers? He spends 2 hours in the morning and night taking down and putting up barriers, 4 hours a day, and the digger isn't moving. That makes no sense whatsoever. No sense whatsoever. Now, I'm going to quickly... Catch 22, says Chris Ford. That was my own personal rant about visa waivers to replace the people that we threw out the country. It's a whole thing. So, David Wiley, author and star. David Wiley says, David Wiley here. I'm heading over to Errol Airfield this Saturday to report on the Scottish Plant Operator Challenge organised by the SPOA for Earth Movers magazine and to see Morris Leslie Group's Plastic Plant and Tractor Working Weekend. Steve, are you still attending? If you are, let us know how you get on. Please, would somebody do me a favour and point a camera at it? Just to be clear, point a camera at it that way, not that way, that way. Film what's going on. Film Steve Williamson actually winning the damn thing. That would be nice. But also send me some video of the old kit as well. Love to see it, and I'd be more than happy to support that, because I think what the SPOA have done in rescuing that event is nothing short of excellent. So congratulations to them. Steve Williamson, yes, the video I sent you is posted on Insta. Go take a look. Go find Steve Williamson on Instagram, and while you're there, subscribe, because he's good, really good. There were train strikes, and last train to Derby was cancelled at a moment's notice, which I wasn't aware of. Nigel Williams came all the way from Birmingham, lifted me, went to his in Mowbray, got his car and dropped me off in Watford. Forever grateful, and he covered 8 counties. Nigel Williams, I tip my hat to you, sir. Well done. Well done. That is above and beyond the Call of Duty. I've got 9K numbers in my phone, says Dan Cullen at the moment, and counting. Number of close friends numbers as well. Yeah, I mean, I've got those backed up, but it's things, I mean, there's photographs on there of kids, grandchildren. I've got notes of stuff that I'm working on, and I'm pretty good at backing stuff up, but if it were to go, there'd be a problem. I was thinking Hellhead would be a good chance. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out if you want any help with that. I do know the marketing people at all of these, and why not? If as I say, Hyundai have got their tie-in with certain influencers, but do it with Demolition, do it with Liebherr, do it with Hitachi, Komatsu, any of these people. They have a working demonstration, and I'm pretty sure that somebody with 30, 40, 50, I don't know how many thousand followers you've got on various social platforms there, I'm pretty sure they'd be delighted to have that. I'd love to meet Ed and Steve Williamson at some point. Yeah, one of the great things about this show is that it goes far and wide. It goes overseas, it goes to top of Scotland, down to the bottom of Cornwall, and all points in between. Love that. The problem of this show is the fact that people are spread from the top of Scotland to the very bottom of the southwest. It would be so nice to just say, actually, what we're going to do, we're going to book a venue, and we will just meet up somewhere in the middle of the country, just as a one-off, get the group photograph, but literally just spend the whole day having a natter. I think we'd all deserve that. Let's have a look. Are you guys going to Hillhead next year? Yes. There is no choice. As I've already mentioned, and there is a video to prove it, I believe that Samota is my new favourite show because it's excellent, and it's because it's Italian, and so on down the line. My second favourite, unquestionably, would be Hillhead. Manageable, not an absolute swine to get to, no flights to take care of, and listen, I like travelling to ConExpo, I like travelling to Balmer as well, and I'll be at Intermat in France next year. Be doing all of those, but Hillhead, just love Hillhead. It's fantastic. So if you are going, let's hook up. I'd love to get a working demonstration on Devil on Machine at Hillhead. You have already met the people, Dan, I think. Have a word with Kevin Lynch. Just ask the question. The worst thing he can say is no. But, you know, given the fact that you've met him and you're obviously a fan, tell him that you're a fan, and have a word. He may well say, yeah, why not? Pop along and do that. You never know. I think that's one of the things that I would say to any budding influencers out there and content creators. Ask. The worst feedback you're going to get is no, or not this time, thank you very much. But you might just get a, yeah, come on then, let's do it. Let's do it. I think the recognition of content creators and influencers, I know JCB have been running influencer days for several years now. I know Leap here have been doing it for, blimey, 7-8 years now, I would have thought. And obviously, as I said, Hyundai now have their own pet influencers as well. I think the world is turning onto that. And I think if you just make yourselves known and you know, prove that you can do what you say you can do, as I say, I mean, they're looking for eyeballs ultimately. So if you've got a big following, and Steve Williamson has most certainly got a big following, why the hell not? Why the hell not? They'd be crazy to say no. Even if they said, yeah, come along to Hillhead, we'll give you the keys to one of our big machines for an hour just to let you have a play with it. Why not? Well, let's get organised for a day out at Hillhead, meet up with everyone, get a proper picture with Demolition Excavator in the background. I don't even care what the background is. The important bit is, well, me, obviously, but no, the assembled masses. I've got a funny feeling I'm going to end up doing it in 2 bites. I think I'll end up doing an English group photograph and probably a Scottish one. I am planning to go to Scotland. I haven't figured it all out yet, but I am planning to go to Scotland. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to Scotland basically to meet up with Gary Muirhead and Callum McIntosh at the SPOA. No other reason than that. That's my plan. I may do some other stuff while I'm there, but that is my plan. So keep your eyes peeled on that. Don't forget the Irish too. Well, some of the Irish are quite local. You're in Watford. I could be on your front door step for 40 minutes. But yes, the Irish too. I am actually going off to. I can't actually remember if I'm going to Ireland or Northern Ireland in September. It's a disgrace that I can't actually remember which bit of the whether I'm going north or south. But I've had an invite to go and do a thing. I'm going to do the thing, and I can't actually remember where I'm going. It's in the diary. It's on my phone, which is another reason I can't lose my phone. But yes, I will be going to that part of the world at some point. Kinsuffer will love yous to come to Scott Plant. Myself and Ed will be there. Okay, let's have a look. When somebody please remind me, when is Scott Plant? An evening meet at Hillhead would be great, so we can still pull in the show in the daytime. Yeah, absolutely. David Wiley, great. See you at Scott Plant in 2024. I'm making promises a long way in advance, but I do. I mean, I'd love to get to Scotland before 2024. I really would. But this is quite a commitment. You'd be surprised. Having to turn up every single day. And funnily enough, I'm actually working on the second vlog. The subject of the second vlog is why I'm scared to stop doing this show. Genuinely. And not just because I've got an audience and we've accidentally built a community around it. There's a lot more besides. I am planning to film that in the very near future. Friday the 26th and Saturday the 27th of April. I am about to punch that into my diary, and I will be there. I will be at Scott Plant. If I can find it, I may even wear a kilt. What the hell? Why not? David Wiley, Friday 26th, 27th of April at the Royal Highland Centre in Edinburgh. Long while since I've been to Edinburgh, so that's a good enough excuse as well. I'll see you guys at Scott Plant. Have a deal that if I get to Scott Plant, he has to come to Hillhead. Fair enough. Good. Looks like we're going to have a full contingent up at Hillhead, at Scott Plant rather. So yeah, and I don't know quite what the cost is and everything else, but I've always had a hankering to go to Scotland on the sleeper train. Can I do that from London to Edinburgh? Can I do that? Is it cheaper if I book it a year in advance, or nearly a year in advance? Probably. I'd really like to do that. Never done it. I'd like to do that. So that will do us. That's the week done. No Saturday social. It is coming back, but no Saturday social. The old social calendar in the Demolition News Towers has been a bit busy recently, and it's not allowing me to do the Saturday socials. But we are going to be bringing it back. We're also got a marathon show coming up at some point in September. I will clarify the dates. Dan Cullen, sleeper hour, train hour, 8 hours. I think that would suit me just fine. I would love that. Do like a long train journey, I have to say, particularly if I've got a podcast to listen to or a movie to watch on the laptop. Love all that. So yes, we've got lots to come up, but we've got 4 shows next week, because all things being equal, I'm not going to be here on Tuesday. I'm supposed to be doing some more consultancy work, although I've not had confirmation on that. I'm going to check that this afternoon and make sure that that's still on. But one way or another, I will be here Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then nothing for a week. You'll just have to make your own entertainment, unless I can come up with something that I can leave behind. Given the time constraints, I may come up with a show that I may drop on the Wednesday. I'll pre-record it and get it to drop on the Wednesday, just to remind you what I look like you're going to forget. Have a wonderful weekend, guys, and thank you, Nigel, again for what you did yesterday. Stay safe, guys. Yeah, that's a fine note to end on. Everybody stay safe. Everybody that's going to this SPOA event this weekend, have a fantastic time. Steve, if you are going, please bring back the silverware. It would complete the circle. I'm a huge fan of Callum McIntosh and what he's doing at the SPOA. Huge fan of Steve Williamson and what he's doing online as well. It just feels right that you should take the silverware. So go and do your best if you're going. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you again on Monday. Till then, all the best.